Not only the fighting, they had rain, so much rain, all their blankets, everything was all drenched. People were sleeping on rocks. And also their ammunition, which they didn't have that much ammunition, that was kind of spoiled. They were getting very, very anxious. Now, they stayed on that mountain 53 days. By the way, Franz Werfel, the Jewish novelist, wrote that big novel about the Armenians on Musa Dagh. And this was purchased by MGM, 1933, to be made a movie. This is a long story, but if you're very much interested in how they detained that picture being made, they bribed everybody they could, and they threatened our State Department, if this picture is made, we'll do such and such, just like they do now. I'll come to that later. And that picture was not made. And Clark Gable was supposed to be the leading man. Can you imagine what kind of a picture that would have been gone all over the world? By the way, Franz Werfel's novel, this German, I think his background was German Jew, he was so interested to write this story because he was visiting in Damascus. He saw some orphans working very hard, and he wanted to know where are they from. And when they described them that they are from Armenian Genocide, they were the little orphans left over. And he came and wrote that story. By the way, after my talk, you can come to the exhibit room, and I have my website. And if you're interested to see the 40 Days of Musa Dagh, a rich Armenian millionaire, he said, I'm going to make it. Of course, it's not on the level of MGM's picture would have been, but he made the picture. You can sit down at your home and watch the whole thing. It's about 2 hours, but it gives you the whole story. Anyway, our people were getting kind of very nervous because we had lost 18 of our men, ages 16 to 61. And the Turkish soldiers brought more soldiers, and they were penetrating to the mountain, and they were getting really, really very desperate. Food was very scarce at that point. Little children were going around pulling on their mommy's skirts. I want food, I want milk, I want this, I want that. And they were getting real desperate. And at their last Mass, Father Abraham gathered them all. They always had Mass on Sundays. And they sang so anxiously, bitterly. And the Sharagan, we call the hymn, the liturgy, is called, Dear Lord, have mercy on us. In Armenian, that's called Dervo Ormia, which is a very, very good Sharagan, which is sung. And they started singing that very seriously. As they were still singing and crying, they stayed silent for a while. And all of a sudden, there was a jubilation. Everybody ran to the cliff. Thank you, God, you heard us. There was a big warship that stopped at the seashore. They had never seen that before. Before they would sit in the dark fog, they would disappear. But this time it really stopped. We had men who spoke French and English fluently. Very speedily but very carefully they went down the mountain. And everybody was still, jumping, happy, yelling, calling, thank you, God. And at the same time, the gun shooting that was getting closer to them, and they even had bombs. They had made the Kebuse church a big center for their ammunition, the depot. So these two men go there, they speak to the captain, they explain to him that we are marooned on top of Musa Dagh. Please save us, the Turks are after us. Now, how did that ship notice that? They always had two men with two big boards and a sheet, and on top of that sheet, a red cross was embroidered by the young women. And around it, it says, we're Christians, save us. The Turks are killing us. And that's how they saw that. They were shaking that in front of the ship. What happens? The captain telegrams the superiors. They sent 3 more French ships and then 1 British ship. And at the same time, they bombed the depot that the Turks had. And everything went into flames. And the people were so happy that they're going to be saved. And on September 12th, 4 French ships and 1 British ship took all the Armenians from the top of that mountain. There were about 4,000, around 200. And they brought them to Port Said, Egypt. They had all the tents ready for them. And the British and the French provided the food, education for the kids, everything. And during that ship ride, the children were so happy, running around with candy in their hands. And the people who didn't even have a shower, a bath, all these 53 days, they got happy to do that. And they got good meals. And they were very happy they were saved. My mom explained to me that older women, they said, we don't care where they're taking us now, as long as we're not under the Turkish bombs and the shooting, and we're out of here. So they stayed there 4 years while the war was going on. But at the same time, all the other towns that were deported in the Syrian desert, Deir Zor, they had no food. This is when the saying, when Americans would say to my girlfriend says, her grandmother used to say to her mother, eat your food. There are a lot of starving Armenians that you ought to eat your food. So that phrase became very popular at that point because those Armenians had no food, no water. And after a while, if you don't have water and you keep walking in the desert, and Henry and I, my husband and I, went through the desert in an air-conditioned car. I could not tolerate it. Can you imagine those people having no horse or carriage to take them? They were bare feet in the very hot sand, walking. And the ones that were deported, by the way, were mostly women, babies, children, and elderly, because the young people were all being killed in the Turkish army. None of them returned. None of them returned. And thus, if the people were fainting, they just left them there, they just buried them alive. And this is known because there were, people that came back and talked about that. It was very hard for my mom to talk about this, but I, being so interested in history, I always asked her questions. And I said to her, what if a Turkish soldier came while you were bringing water, because the spring of the waters were far away from the main habitation on top of Musa Dagh? She said, I would have thrown myself out of the cliff.
I said, you were. I felt so sad. And she started sobbing that she never thought she was going to see my father. And I started sobbing. I said, I'm glad you didn't jump off the cliff. You're here. You're my mom. And I hugged her. But the audacity of the Turkish government now denying this is just obnoxious. It's inhumane. And they are still denying it. Now, our people are most disliked by the Turkish government because about 10 years ago, I did another program in another college about the genocide, and newspapers carried the story. And apparently, a Turkish person saw that, informed the Turkish embassy in New York, and the Turkish embassy had written a letter to the college that I did the lecture, saying that, who is this woman, Musa Dagh girl? There's no such place, she's lying. I didn't get angry. I said to the president, I said, why don't you write a letter to this person, invite them to come to the college. This is an educational institution. Let's have a forum. Let's have a debate. Invite them. I'll be here ready for them. They wrote the letter. To this date, they have never gotten an answer. You know what that means. And the reason for that is because our people stood against them and we were saved. And how could they lie? Because all the other people that were deported, they died. If you go to the Syrian desert, there are pictures that people dig out all the bones and the skulls of all Armenian people. So when people say April 24 on 1.5 million Armenians died, that's true. But I always like to add the other one that Sultan Hamid killed, about 300,000 to 400,000. That makes it almost 2 million. Now listen to this story. When Hitler was ready to attack Poland, he sent his military men. He says, go kill without mercy. This was, by the way, August 22nd, 1939. He said, go kill, no mercy. After all, who remembers the Armenian massacres? He was emboldened to do that. Now, I'm not sure, but many people think that if the Ottoman Empire, when they were doing those atrocities to the Armenians, if they were immediately punished severely, maybe the Holocaust may not have happened. Because Hitler brazenly got up and said that. And not only the Jewish people lost 2 million, it was triple. 6 million Jews were gone. And this is an atrocity that you have to eradicate from this world. And now as you're sitting here, as I'm talking, perhaps somebody's being beheaded or burned by ISIS. This is, all human beings are important. You know, Hitler wanted to create a master race. Thank God he did not succeed. And now the ISIS is trying to create a master religion. That is not acceptable to us. We live in America, and we have our Constitution. Our First Amendment gives us the right of our religion, speech, and press. And why do you think we have mosques in the United States? Because we have the freedom, and those Muslims come and enjoy their life. As a matter of fact, not long ago, my husband and I were talking to a Muslim, and Turkish Muslim. He is so happy to be out of that area because they're so unjust and so inhumane. He's so happy. His wife has a job. He's got a son and a daughter going to high school, and they're doing great, and he's planning for them to go to college. That's fine. That's fine. I think all the Muslims that are in America, they're happy, not the ones that over there, they kill each other. But
the thing is this, that it's like a cancer. It's traveling from one place to the other. France has had 5 attacks already this year, within these 2 months, and it's spreading to other countries. Now, I hate to say this. I'm going to give you many commemorations that are good, but our country, our commander-in-chief, does not want to recognize the Armenian genocide as genocide. That makes me very angry. Human beings are to be considered to tell the truth. And the very first time, in January of 2008, our commander-in-chief with his surrogate, Samantha Powers, they promised that if he's elected, he's definitely going to be commemorating the genocide. And his words were, "It is our responsibility as a human rights nation will do that." I ask you, what happened? Well, let me tell you what happens. The Turkish government sends millions of dollars, even though they're a democratic republic now, but they belong to a certain Muslim party. It's called AK Party. And they're very, very, very intense in their religion and in their Muslim Turkism that they want everybody to be. There are 312 members in their parliament who are that devout to that. And when there were commemorations of the Armenian Genocide in Istanbul, Erdogan, the president, Tayyip Erdogan, went over. He says, "My condolences to you," and he disappeared. A couple days later, they had a big rally in the square with placards, professional placards, saying Armenian genocide never happened. And then they had even more obscene placards saying Armenians are bastards. Excuse me? If they were, because they took their women, our women, and married them forcibly, maybe that's what they're talking about. Very sad. Even to this date now, as of 2007, I don't know if any one of you has heard about Hrant Dink. He was a publisher. He was an educated person. He had his own office. He published a newspaper in Armenian and Turkish. And he was a very good peacemaker. He wanted to meet the Turkish leaders and the Armenian leaders to sit down and talk about this. Of course, as soon as he mentions the genocide, he was marked already. One morning, he's going to his office. In front of his office, he was shot with 3 bullets in the back of his head. And the young man who shot him yelling out, "Oh, I shot the infidel! I shot the infidel!" as if he had a prize coming to him. 2011. You're going to see the pictures, by the way, in the exhibit room. I have Hunting's picture and a young soldier, Armenian soldier, who was in the Turkish army. After all, he's a Turkish citizen, so he joined the army. On the very day of the genocide, April 24, 2011, his friend, Turkish soldier, shot him. On that very day, there was an old woman. She was in a taxi going to church, I guess. The driver knew that. Beat her up so badly and pushed her out. And there was another lady, 87 years old, with all her relics and all. She lived in an apartment. And her daughter came to visit her, a middle-aged woman. She found her mother in a pool of blood. She was stabbed 7 times. Her throat was slit. As if that was not enough, her blouse was opened with a sharp instrument. The perpetrators had made a cross right on her chest. And when she was crying and people came, human rights representative came and warned her. She said, please don't say anything. I just saw many plainclothes Turkish policemen. There'll be another genocide if anything is said. Please stay quiet. She forced herself not to say anything. The whole funeral was quiet. That's not all. There was a young man of 40. He taught in Istanbul Armenian school. His colleagues said, he's not here for 3 days. Let's call him and see what's going on. Maybe he's sick. They called, no answer. They finally said, let's go see how he's doing. They go, the door was ajar, and he was lying down, his throat slit, and he was in a pool of blood. They called the Turkish police. They came, and they said, oh, well, it must have been a robbery. That was it. Now, here's my big question. That's still going on. The human rights are being abused. Why are we an ally to Turkey? Their borders are wide open for the ISIS to go in and out. And this is no secret, because that woman who was with those groups in France, she immediately ran to Turkey. From there, she was in Syria, with no questions asked. And not long ago, last year, my husband is born in the mountainside of Syria a long time ago. In Kesab, there were 12 villages. The ISIS and all the other terrorists came, bombed the whole villages. Everybody ran out with just their clothes on. They left every belonging that they had in their homes and burned the churches and the schools. And I don't understand how we can be allies to people who are doing these things. It's just beyond me. I don't understand that. But I want to give my compliments, kudos to His Holiness Pope Francis, who gave a special mass for commemorating the Armenian Genocide with all the pontiffs of the Armenian Church. They even sang the Lord's Prayer in Armenian. And also, amazing things are happening in Europe. The Parliament of Europe, they have commemorated and made proclamations of the Armenian Genocide. Now, this is an interesting one. The Austrian-Hungarian group, which has 6 different parties in there, they all also have committed themselves to recognize the Armenian Genocide, and they were even forceful in saying this mass destruction must stop. And they were, during World War I, they were with the Turks. This was not with the Allies. This was with the Central Party group. And they are recognizing it too. And also, Rabbi Shmuley Potek, he wrote a beautiful article in the New York Times commemorating the Armenian Genocide. There are many, many more, which I give very big thank yous, especially our legislator too. And there are many states in the United States that honor this day. But I was hoping that our commander-in-chief would do the same. It just makes me very angry. It is not right to hate. As I said before, we're all children of God. It is not right to teach your young, innocent kids to hate. It isn't right to make your young people, bind them with bombs to go on suicide bombings. It is not right to behead people. It is not right to put a person or persons in a cage and burn them. It is not right to have females mutilated, and I don't mean cutting a finger or a toe. It is not right. Hatred does not save anyone's life. Hatred is like a cancer. As our generals have been saying lately, we ought to have a very, very sound strategy to destroy ISIS. Because if not, we even have had samples of it in this country. Have you ever heard before anyone beheaded in this country? We had one already in Oklahoma. How about the two brothers in Boston? And how about Hassan at Fort Hood? He gets up, he says, Allah Akbar, and shoots the military and other people injuring. Now, that was not a workplace violence. That was radical Islamic terrorism, period. We should eradicate that from all areas that we can. I'm just going to pray that people understand humanness, to be human to each other, no matter what our ethnicity is, our skin color is, our religion is, or what countries. I'm sure all of you have backgrounds that your ancestors came from some country, and they're all okay. We're all being creative in this country, which is our country. We're all Americans. You don't go around saying, I'm a Jewish American, I'm an Armenian American, I'm an African American. We're all Americans. And we love our Constitution. And thank God for our founding fathers who so thoughtfully created our government, our Constitution, to protect everyone. But on the other hand, we ought not sit back and let people like the ISIS. By the way, those names change all the time. You know, originally the Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, you name it, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they're all Islamic terrorist groups. They ought to be eradicated. And I'm not using the word of the general, you have to be destroyed. That's the only way. Otherwise, we're going to be very, very sad people to be afraid for our lives all the time. And that isn't right. God Almighty is love.